It was a warm evening in New York City when Emily Parker, a 28-year-old single mom, closed the little coffee shop where she worked. She lived in a small apartment with her 6-year-old son, Jacob, who was her whole world. Life hadn't been kind to Emily. Her husband had left her when Jacob was only a baby, and since then, she struggled every day just to survive. Emily was strong on the outside, but inside, she was tired. Tired of unpaid bills, tired of working double shifts, and tired of pretending everything was okay for Jacob's sake. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Dubai, Omar al-Rashid, a 35-year-old billionaire, lived in a different world. He owned hotels, oil businesses, and luxury cars that most people only saw in magazines. Yet, Omar wasn't happy either. His family constantly pressured him to marry, but he didn't believe in love anymore. To him, marriage had become a business transaction. Something people used for money, power, and security. One night, Omar was scrolling through a confidential website where wealthy men met women who wanted financial stability. That's when he saw Emily's profile. She hadn't even wanted to join the site, but her best friend had signed her up, saying, "At least someone might help you out, Em." Her profile was simple. Single mom, hard-working, not looking for love, just security for my son. Those words caught Omar's attention. He wasn't looking for love either, but something about her honesty made him pause. Days later, Omar flew to New York and arranged to meet Emily in a quiet hotel lounge. She walked in nervously, wearing a plain dress, nothing fancy. Omar noticed right away, she wasn't like the other women who usually tried to impress him with designer clothes and heavy makeup. She was real. "Emily Parker?" Omar asked, his deep voice carrying a hint of authority. "Yes," she replied softly, sitting down across from him. He studied her face for a moment. She looked fragile, but her eyes carried a strength he couldn't ignore. "I'll be direct," Omar said. "I'm not here to play games. I'm looking for someone to stand by me, to be a wife in name. You'll never have to worry about money again. Your son will have everything he needs. In return, I want loyalty and honesty. Nothing more." Emily's heart pounded. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. This wasn't a date, it was a deal. A deal that could change her life, and Jacob's. But deep down, she was hiding something. Something that even Omar couldn't imagine. Something that, if he found out, might destroy everything before it even began. Emily took a shaky breath, looked at Omar and whispered, "I'll do it." Omar gave a small nod. Then it's settled. Neither of them knew that this deal would lead to love, heartbreak, and a truth that would shake both of their worlds. Emily sat in her tiny apartment that night, staring at the glowing screen of her phone. The message still haunted her. "You can't hide the truth forever, Emily. Sooner or later, he'll find out." Her hands trembled. She quickly deleted the text, but her heart wouldn't calm down. Jacob was asleep in the next room, his small chest rising and falling peacefully. Emily brushed his hair gently and whispered, "Mommy's doing this for you. Everything will be okay." But deep down, she wasn't sure if it really would be. The next morning, Emily met Omar again, this time in his private office in Manhattan. The contrast between her world and his was overwhelming. The tall glass windows overlooked the city skyline, and expensive art decorated the walls. She felt out of place, like she didn't belong in such luxury. Omar noticed her discomfort. He leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. "You seem nervous," he said. Emily forced a smile. "This is a lot for me. I've never been in a situation like this before." Omar nodded slowly. "Neither have I. But I believe we both know what we want. You need security for your son. I need someone by my side, someone real, not pretending for money or fame." His words softened her heart for a moment, but she quickly reminded herself, this was a business arrangement, not love. Then Omar placed a thick document on the table. "This is the contract. Read it carefully before you sign." Emily's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. It outlined everything: monthly allowance, a trust fund for Jacob, a luxurious apartment, even health insurance for her and her son. It was more than she had ever dreamed of. But one line made her pause. Clause 12. Absolute honesty is required. If any major truth is hidden or revealed later, the agreement will be terminated immediately. Emily's chest tightened. She thought of the secret she carried, the one no one in Omar's world could ever know. Her hands began to shake, and Omar noticed. "Something wrong?" he asked, his tone sharp but curious. Emily swallowed hard and shook her head. "No, I just didn't expect something this serious. It feels permanent." "That's because it is," Omar replied firmly. "I don't do temporary things. If we are to stand together, even if not in love, then it must be based on trust." Emily looked down, blinking back tears. She wanted to confess, to tell him the truth right there, but fear gripped her. If he knew, he might walk away, and then Jacob's future would crumble. So with trembling hands, she signed her name, Emily Parker. Omar reached forward, his dark eyes unreadable, and signed his own name, Omar al-Rashid. The deal was sealed. That evening, Emily returned home to Jacob, who was coloring on the living room floor. "Mommy, why are you smiling?" he asked, looking up with innocent eyes. Emily knelt beside him, hugging him tightly. "Because, baby, things are going to get better for us." Jacob's face lit up. "Does that mean no more scary phone calls about bills?" Emily's throat tightened. She nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. No more scary calls." But deep down, she knew there were scarier things than bills, like secrets that could shatter everything. A week later, Omar invited Emily and Jacob to his penthouse. It was the first time Jacob met him. Emily was anxious, unsure how Omar would react to her little boy. When they walked in, Jacob's eyes went wide. "Whoa, is this a castle?" Omar, who rarely smiled, actually chuckled. "Something like that." Jacob ran around, pointing at everything: marble floors, golden chandeliers, and the huge piano in the corner. Emily whispered nervously, "Jacob, don't touch anything." But Omar raised a hand. "Let him. He's a child." Emily blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected him to be gentle. Omar crouched down to Jacob's level and asked, "Do you like chocolate?" Jacob grinned. "I love it." Omar pressed a button, and within minutes, a servant appeared with a tray full of chocolates. Jacob's eyes sparkled with joy. Emily stood back, watching the scene unfold. For the first time, she saw a side of Omar that wasn't cold or guarded. He looked human. As the evening went on, Emily noticed Omar watching her quietly. Finally, when Jacob was busy playing, he asked in a low voice, "Why do I feel like you're hiding something from me, Emily?" Her heart stopped. What do you mean?" "Your eyes," Omar said calmly. "They tell me more than your words. You carry pain, but you don't talk about it. If we are to move forward, I need to know I can trust you." Emily forced a shaky smile. "I told you everything. I just had a hard past." Omar studied her for a long moment but didn't press further. "Very well. But remember, secrets have a way of coming out when you least expect them." His words cut deep, almost like a warning. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the photograph in her hands. The room around her felt like it was closing in. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as her mind spiraled back to the past she had worked so hard to bury. The picture showed her standing with a man, tall, rugged, with sharp features and cold eyes. A man who once controlled her life. His name was Mark Stevens. He wasn't just her ex-husband. He was her nightmare. 6 years ago, when Emily first found out she was pregnant with Jacob, Mark had been everything she thought she wanted: charming, successful, and protective. But soon after, the charm faded, and the mask slipped. He became controlling, violent, and cruel. Emily endured it for months, telling herself it would get better, until one night, his anger left her with a broken arm and Jacob, just a baby, screaming in the crib. That was the night she ran. She took Jacob and disappeared, never looking back. She filed for divorce and lived in fear ever since, always worried he might find her again. And now, looking at the photo slipped under her door, she knew one thing. He had found her. Emily clutched the photo so tightly her knuckles turned white. "No, this can't be happening," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. At that moment, Jacob walked in rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mommy? Why are you crying?" Quickly, she wiped her tears and forced a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Go back to bed." But Jacob frowned. "Mommy, you're scared." Her heart broke. She pulled him into her arms and kissed his forehead. "Don't worry, baby. Mommy won't let anything hurt you. Ever." Inside though, she wasn't so sure. The next day, Emily met Omar for lunch in one of his private restaurants. She wanted to act normal, but the fear inside her made it hard to even breathe. Omar noticed immediately. He leaned forward, his dark eyes narrowing. "Something's wrong. Tell me." Emily shook her head. "No, I'm fine." "Don't lie to me," he said firmly. "I can see it in your eyes again. You're hiding something." Her throat tightened. Should she tell him? Should she risk everything? But then, she remembered the contract. Clause 12. Absolute honesty. If Omar found out she had kept something so big from him, an abusive past, a dangerous man still lurking, he might end the deal. And if that happened, Jacob would lose everything she had fought for. So she forced herself to smile. "It's just a lot of change, moving here. I'm not used to this life." Omar's eyes lingered on her face, clearly unconvinced. But after a moment, he nodded. "You'll get used to it. And you'll never have to go back to the life you left behind." Those words struck her hard. If only he knew. The life she left behind was already catching up to her. That evening, Emily went for a walk on the balcony of the penthouse. The city lights twinkled below, but she felt no peace. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with another unknown message. "You can't keep Jacob from me. He's mine too." Her knees nearly buckled. Mark wasn't just threatening her, he was threatening her son. Emily's heart pounded so loudly she barely heard the door open behind her. "Emily," Omar's voice came, calm but firm. She quickly shoved her phone into her pocket and turned. "Oh, hi. I was just getting some air." He studied her face for a long moment. "You're trembling." Emily's lips parted, but no words came. She wanted to scream the truth, to tell him everything, but fear sealed her mouth shut. Instead, she whispered, "I'm just tired." Omar stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "You don't have to be afraid here. Whatever it is, I can protect you. But only if you let me." Her eyes filled with tears. She turned away quickly, hiding them. "I'm fine, Omar." "Really?" For the first time, Omar's expression hardened with frustration. He wasn't used to people lying to him, and he knew Emily was. But before he could press further, Jacob ran in holding a toy car. "Omar, look, it goes super fast." Omar softened instantly, crouching down to smile at the boy. Emily watched him, her heart aching. Jacob liked Omar, trusted him even. But what if Omar discovered the truth and walked away? She couldn't let that happen. Later that night, Emily tucked Jacob into bed. But when she returned to her room, another envelope was waiting on her nightstand. This time, it wasn't just a photo. It was a plane ticket. One way. From New York to Los Angeles. With a handwritten note. "Meet me tomorrow night. Or I'll take Jacob myself." Emily gasped, dropping the ticket to the floor. Her body trembled as she sank onto the bed, tears spilling uncontrollably. She didn't know what terrified her more, losing Jacob to Mark, or losing Omar if he found out the truth. Emily sat frozen in her room, Omar's message still glowing on her phone screen. "Emily, we need to talk. I know you're hiding something." Her heart pounded. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. It was as if the walls around her were closing in. On one side, Mark was back, threatening to take Jacob. On the other, Omar, her only chance at safety and stability, was starting to see through her lies. She felt trapped between two fires, and whichever way she turned, she was bound to burn. The next morning, Emily dressed Jacob for school. His cheerful chatter filled the kitchen as he munched on cereal, but Emily's mind was somewhere else. "Mommy," Jacob said suddenly, "why do you look sad?" Emily quickly forced a smile. "I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking about Omar." Jacob grinned. "I like him. He's nice. He bought me chocolate and let me play with the piano." Emily's throat tightened. "Yes, sweetheart. About Omar." But in her chest, guilt clawed at her. Jacob liked Omar, trusted him. But what would happen if Omar found out about Mark? Would he turn his back on them both? Later that day, Emily met Omar in his office again. The atmosphere was different this time. Tense, heavy, like a storm about to break. Omar stood by the window, his back to her, looking out at the skyline. When she entered, he didn't turn around immediately. Finally, he spoke. "I've dealt with many people in my life, Emily. Businessmen, politicians, even liars. I've learned one thing: they all give themselves away eventually." Emily swallowed hard. "What are you trying to say?" Omar turned then, his eyes dark and piercing. "You're hiding something. And if we are to have any kind of future together, business or otherwise, I need the truth." Emily's lips trembled. "I told you everything. I'm just a single mom who wants a better life for her son." Omar stepped closer, his gaze sharp. "Don't insult me, Emily. I can see the fear in your eyes. It's not about money, it's not about this contract, it's something deeper." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, Omar, don't push me." His jaw clenched. He hated lies, but something inside him softened at the sight of her trembling. Instead of pressing further, he took a step back. "Fine. But remember, secrets always come out. And when they do, the damage is far worse." Emily nodded, barely holding herself together. She left his office with her heart in pieces. That evening, Emily walked Jacob home from school. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the streets. Suddenly, she noticed a black car parked near the corner. Her stomach dropped. The tinted window rolled down just enough for her to see a familiar face. Mark. Her breath caught. She tightened her grip on Jacob's hand. "Mommy," Jacob asked innocently, "why are you squeezing my hand so hard?" Emily forced a smile. "Just hold on to me, baby. Don't let go." Mark smirked from the car, lifting his phone like a threat. Then the window rolled up, and the car drove away. Emily's knees weakened. He was watching them. Always watching. Back at the penthouse, Emily locked herself in the bathroom, her hands gripping the sink as she stared at her reflection. Her eyes were swollen with fear. She whispered to herself, "You have to protect Jacob, no matter what it takes." Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Mark. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m. at the old train station. Come alone. If you don't, I'll take him myself." Emily covered her mouth to stop a scream. The next day, Emily tried to act normal around Omar, but he wasn't fooled. He watched her during dinner, his eyes narrowing each time she forced a smile. Jacob, unaware of the tension, happily told Omar about school. "Omar," Jacob said excitedly, "can you come to my soccer game this weekend?" For a moment, Omar's stern face softened. "Of course," he said gently. "I wouldn't miss it." Emily's chest ached at the sight of Jacob's happiness. He was already bonding with Omar. And yet, tomorrow, she would have to face Mark. That night, when Jacob was asleep, Emily sat alone on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Omar appeared quietly, standing beside her. "You're shaking again," he said softly. She wrapped her arms around herself. "It's just cold." Omar shook his head. "You're lying again. I can feel it." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Please, Omar. Don't ask me tonight. I can't. I can't tell you." For the first time, Omar's expression softened with something more than suspicion. It was almost concern. He placed a hand on the balcony rail beside hers. "Emily, whatever it is, I will find out. I always do. But if you trust me, maybe it won't destroy you." Emily turned her face away, her tears falling silently. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to lean on him. But Mark's threats echoed in her head. She whispered to herself, so low Omar couldn't hear, "If you knew the truth, you'd walk away." Suspense ending for Part 4. The next evening, Emily stood outside the old train station, clutching her coat tightly. The place was dark, abandoned, and filled with echoes of the past. A shadow moved inside, and a familiar voice called out, "Emily." It was Mark. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced down. It was a message from Omar. "Where are you? And why did you lie to me about tonight?" Emily's heart stopped. She was caught between Omar's suspicion and Mark's threat. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of Omar's office, but Emily felt none of its warmth. Her palms were sweaty, her chest heavy, and her mind raced with fear as she sat across from Omar at his polished oak desk. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on her like a hawk studying prey. His silence was louder than words, and Emily could feel it pressing down on her. Finally, Omar spoke. His voice was calm, but every syllable cut through the air like a blade. "Emily, I don't tolerate dishonesty. You've lied to me. And I want to know why." Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Her heart thundered. "I gave you my protection, my resources," Omar continued. "I even accepted Jacob as part of this arrangement without question. But you—" he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You've been meeting someone. Who is it?" Emily's stomach twisted. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times in her head, but now that it was here, she couldn't breathe. "Omar, it's not what you think," she whispered. "Then tell me what it is," he demanded, his voice sharp. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, "Mark found me. He's threatening Jacob." She wanted to pour everything out. But Mark's voice echoed in her head. "If Omar finds out, you'll lose him. You'll lose everything." Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head, whispering, "Please, don't ask me this." Omar's hand slammed against the desk, making her flinch. His voice rose, not with anger, but with something deeper, something raw. "Do you think I can protect you if you hide the truth from me? Do you think secrets can survive in my world? They can't, Emily. They destroy everything." Emily sobbed softly, her hands trembling. "I'm not hiding for me. I'm hiding for Jacob. He's all I have." Omar's expression softened slightly at the mention of Jacob. He exhaled slowly, then stood and walked to the window. "I don't know what you're protecting him from," he said quietly, "but you don't need to do it alone. I can handle it, if you let me." Emily stared at his back, her heart aching. He was offering her a lifeline. But could she take it? Or would telling him the truth destroy the fragile bond forming between them? Later that day, Emily returned to the penthouse. Jacob ran into her arms, laughing, unaware of the storm consuming his mother. "Mommy, guess what? Omar said he might come to my soccer game." Jacob beamed, his innocence shining like sunlight through the clouds. Emily hugged him tighter, tears threatening to spill. "That's wonderful, baby." But inside, she was breaking. Tomorrow night, Mark expected her to bring Jacob. And if she refused, he might come himself. That evening, Emily sat on the couch, staring blankly at the city lights outside. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Another unknown message. "He's not the only one watching. Be careful who you trust." Her blood ran cold. It wasn't just Mark. Someone else was involved. Someone who seemed to know about Omar, about her, about everything. She clutched the phone to her chest, shaking. Why is this happening? The next morning, Omar arrived unexpectedly at the penthouse. Emily's heart skipped a beat when she saw him standing in the doorway, dressed in his tailored suit, his presence filling the room. "Pack your things," he said firmly. Emily blinked. What? Why? "You and Jacob are coming with me to Dubai. I don't trust New York anymore. Too many eyes here. Too many shadows." Her pulse quickened. "Dubai. Omar, He stepped closer, his gaze locking onto hers. "You want safety for your son, don't you? Then trust me." Emily's eyes filled with tears. This was her chance. A way out. But what about Mark's threats? What about tomorrow night at the train station? "Omar, She hesitated, her chest tightening. His voice softened. "Emily, let me protect you. I can't do that if you keep walls between us." Her lips trembled. For a brief moment, she thought about telling him everything. About Mark, the threats, the photos. But then Jacob ran into the room, holding his toy car, his little voice full of joy. "Mommy, can we really go on a plane?" Emily looked at her son's shining eyes, then at Omar's steady gaze. She nodded weakly. "Okay. We'll go." That night, Emily sat alone in her room, staring at the plane tickets Omar had given her. Relief should have filled her heart. But instead, fear consumed her. Because tucked beneath the tickets was another envelope, addressed only to her. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single note, written in bold letters. "Run if you want, Emily. But no plane can take Jacob away from me." Emily couldn't sleep that night. She sat upright in bed, clutching the threatening note in her hand. The words burned into her mind. "Run if you want, Emily. But no plane can take Jacob away from me." Her eyes drifted back to the window. The figure she had seen earlier was gone, but the terror remained. If it wasn't Mark, then who? She whispered to herself, "How many people are watching us?" The next morning, Omar came to pick them up for a flight to Dubai. He was calm, composed as always, but Emily noticed something different in his tone. He was more protective, more insistent. "Your bags," Omar said firmly. "Are they ready?" Emily hesitated, glancing at Jacob, who was excitedly running around with his backpack. "Omar, are you sure this is the right choice? Leaving everything so suddenly." He looked straight into her eyes. "I've built empires, Emily. I know when danger is circling. And danger is circling you. If you don't trust me, at least trust my instincts." Her lips trembled. She nodded. "All right." But deep down, she was torn in two. Leaving with Omar meant safety, but what about Mark's ultimatum? If she didn't show up at the train station tonight, he might do something reckless. As Omar made a call in the living room, Emily slipped into her bedroom, pulling out her phone. Another message buzzed in. This one chilled her to the bone. "If you leave with him, Omar won't just lose you, he'll lose everything. Think carefully." Emily's hands shook. This wasn't Mark's style. Mark threatened with violence, not words like these. Whoever this mysterious figure was, they seemed to know Omar too, maybe even better than she did. Her mind raced. Could this be a rival of Omar's? A business enemy? Someone who wanted to use her and Jacob to hurt him? The thought made her stomach twist. She wasn't just trapped between Omar and Mark anymore, there was a third shadow pulling strings. That evening, Emily told Omar she needed to take Jacob out for a short walk before their flight. Omar frowned. "It's not safe. I just want him to breathe the air one last time before we leave," Emily pleaded. Omar studied her face carefully, then finally nodded. "Fine. But take one of my drivers." Emily forced a smile. "Of course." But as she held Jacob's hand and stepped outside, her heart pounded with a different plan. She wasn't going for a walk. She was going to the train station. The station was dark, just as before. The rusted rails stretched into the shadows, echoing with the ghosts of the past. Emily's grip tightened on Jacob's hand. "Mommy, why are we here?" Jacob asked, confused. Emily knelt down, tears in her eyes. "Sweetheart, I need you to stay close to me. Don't let go, no matter what happens." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the station. "You came." Emily froze. Mark stepped out from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "I told you I would," Emily whispered, her voice shaking. "Please, Mark. Don't hurt him." Mark's eyes darted to Jacob, who clutched his mother's coat tightly. "He's mine, Emily. You can't keep him from me forever." Emily's body trembled, but she stood tall. "Over my dead body." Mark's smile faded, replaced by cold fury. He took a step closer. "Don't test me." Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness, blinding them both. A black SUV screeched to a stop near the station entrance. Emily's heart dropped. The door opened, and a tall figure stepped out. But it wasn't Omar. It was someone else. The man wore a dark suit, his face partly hidden in shadow. His voice was calm but dangerous. "Well, Emily Parker. And Mark Stevens. Both of you standing right where I wanted you." Emily's stomach turned to ice. She had never seen this man before, but somehow, he knew her name. Mark's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" The man smirked. "Someone who's been watching for a very long time. And unlike either of you, I don't care about Jacob for love or blood." He paused, his eyes glinting. "I care about leverage." Emily's heart stopped. Leverage. He wanted Jacob to get to Omar. Mark growled, stepping forward. "Stay out of this. This is between me and her." The man tilted his head. "You still don't get it, do you? She's already part of a much bigger game." Emily's hands tightened around Jacob. Her voice broke. Please don't touch him." The man's smirk widened. "I don't have to. Because soon enough, Omar will hand him over himself." The air inside the abandoned train station turned thick with tension, every sound echoing like thunder in the hollow space. Emily's knees nearly buckled when she saw Omar standing there. His tall frame was stiff, his jaw clenched, and his eyes, those eyes that had once looked at her with curiosity, with the possibility of trust, now burned with something else. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Jacob clutched her hand tighter, sensing the storm around them. Omar's voice was low, dangerous, almost trembling with restrained fury. "Emily, what is this?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Omar, please." Mark smirked, stepping forward. "Finally, the prince himself shows up. Let me guess, billionaire savior of the poor single mom? How noble." Omar's gaze flicked to Mark, his expression darkening further. "Who are you?" Mark chuckled. "Her husband. Or should I say, ex-husband. But titles don't matter, do they? Blood does. That boy is mine." Emily's heart lurched. She pulled Jacob closer, her voice breaking. "No. He lost that right years ago." Omar turned his eyes back to Emily, his face carved with disbelief. "You never told me. You were married before? That this man even existed?" Her lips trembled. "I was afraid." "You lied," Omar snapped, his voice sharp like glass. "You signed a contract with me, swearing honesty. And yet, here I am, finding your past crawling out of the shadows." Emily sobbed. "I did it for Jacob. If I told you, you would have walked away. I couldn't risk losing this chance for him." Before Omar could respond, the mysterious man in the dark suit stepped forward. His presence silenced them all. His voice was smooth, mocking. "Interesting. A billionaire, a broken wife, and a violent ex. What a charming little reunion." Mark snarled. "Stay out of this. Whoever you are." The man's smirk didn't waver. "Oh, Mark. You think this is about you? No. You're nothing but noise." Emily, however. He looked at her with cold eyes. Emily is the key. Emily's stomach twisted. What do you want from me? The man's smile widened. It's not what I want from you. It's what I want from Omar. And you, my dear, are the perfect leverage. Omar's fists clenched, his voice icy. If you think you can threaten me through her. Oh, I don't think, the man interrupted smoothly. I know. Because for the first time, Omar al-Rashid actually cares about someone who isn't himself. That's new. And that's dangerous. Emily's breath caught. She glanced at Omar, but his face gave nothing away. He stood tall, silent, his rage simmering just beneath the surface. Mark growled, stepping between Emily and the suited stranger. She's mine. Jacob is mine. If anyone's taking them, it's me. The stranger laughed. Pathetic. You can't even hold on to your own wife, and now you think you'll walk out of here with her child. Mark's face twisted with rage. Watch me. In a sudden burst, he lunged forward, reaching for Emily's arm. Jacob screamed, clinging to her side. Don't touch them. Omar's voice roared through the station, carrying authority that silenced even Mark. In 2 strides, he was there, gripping Mark's wrist with steel-like force. Mark winced, his bravado cracking under the sheer strength in Omar's hand. You ever lay a hand on them again, Omar growled, his eyes burning, and it will be the last thing you do. Emily's tears fell harder. For a fleeting moment, she felt safe, but the stranger's chuckle reminded her that safety was only an illusion. This is touching, the man said coldly. But let me remind you all, this isn't over. You'll be hearing from me very soon. And when you do, Omar, you'll have to decide what matters more, your empire or your fragile new family. He turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a silence that screamed louder than his words. Emily collapsed to her knees, holding Jacob tightly as he sobbed into her chest. Mark jerked free from Omar's grip, glaring with venom. This isn't over either, Emily. I'll get him back. One way or another. He stormed off, his footsteps echoing until they faded. Now it was just the 2 of them, Emily and Omar, standing in the ruins of the past, with Jacob trembling between them. Omar's voice was low, heavy with pain. You should have told me, Emily. You should have trusted me. Her tears fell uncontrollably. I was scared. I thought if you knew, you'd throw us away. And Jacob, he deserves better than being thrown away again. Omar's expression softened for just a second, but then hardened again. Secrets destroy trust. And trust is everything. He turned sharply and began to walk away, leaving Emily on the floor, broken and terrified, clutching her son. The sound of his footsteps fading into the night was louder than any scream. Suspense ending for Part 8. Emily looked down at Jacob, wiping his tears, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Her phone buzzed once more. A new message. Tonight was only the beginning. If Omar doesn't give me what I want, the world will know your deepest secret. And this time, it won't just destroy him. It will destroy you. Emily's hands shook as the screen blurred through her tears. She whispered into the darkness. What secret? What else could they know? The following day felt unreal to Emily. Her body was in motion, packing Jacob's clothes into a suitcase, but her mind was frozen. Every sound seemed distant, every thought blurred. Omar had barely spoken to her since the confrontation at the train station. His silence was worse than his anger, because silence meant walls, and she had no idea how to climb them anymore. Jacob sat on the bed, clutching his favorite toy car, his small voice breaking through her fog. Mommy, are we still going on the airplane with Omar? Emily swallowed hard, forcing a shaky smile. Yes, sweetheart. We are. But inside, doubt ate her alive. Would Omar even want them to come after what he had learned? Or would he send them away, discard them like broken promises? The penthouse door opened, and Omar entered, his presence filling the room. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his eyes shadowed from sleeplessness. Emily rose to her feet, her heart pounding. "Omar, she began, but he raised a hand, silencing her. "We leave tonight," he said flatly. "No more delays." She hesitated. "After what happened, do you still want us with you?" For a moment, he said nothing. His gaze drifted to Jacob, who was humming quietly as he played. Something softened in his expression. Finally, he looked back at Emily. "Yes. But understand this, if I find out you're hiding even one more truth from me, Emily, it will be the end. Do you understand?" Tears stung her eyes. She nodded quickly. "I understand." But deep inside, her fear only grew. Because the mysterious man's message haunted her. Your deepest secret. What secret could he mean? What could possibly destroy both her and Omar? Hours later, they were at a private airstrip, boarding Omar's jet under tight security. Men in black suits scanned the surroundings, their hands resting on weapons. Emily held Jacob's hand tightly, her nerves on edge. Omar was on the phone, speaking in rapid Arabic, his tone sharp and commanding. She couldn't understand the words, but she could hear the urgency in them. When he hung up, she dared to ask, "Who was that?" "Someone I trust," he said curtly. Then, after a pause, he added, "There are forces moving against me. Against us." What happened at the station wasn't coincidence. Emily's stomach dropped. "Do you know who that man was?" Omar's jaw tightened. "I have an idea. But if I'm right, this is much bigger than I thought." She pressed, her voice trembling. "What does he want?" His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. "Everything." The jet soared into the night sky, leaving New York's lights behind. Emily tried to calm Jacob, who had fallen asleep against her, his head on her lap. She stroked his hair, her thoughts spiraling. Across the aisle, Omar sat in silence, staring out the window. The distance between them felt unbearable. She wanted to reach out, to tell him everything, but what if the man's threats were true? What if her past held something so devastating that Omar would never forgive her? Her phone buzzed again. She froze, her chest tightening. Carefully, she slid it out of her pocket and read the message. "You can fly across the ocean, Emily. But you can't escape me. When Omar learns the truth about Jacob, he'll never look at you the same way again." The phone slipped from her trembling hands. She stared at her sleeping son, horror coursing through her veins. What truth about Jacob? She whispered to herself. Had Mark lied to her all those years ago? Had she buried something so deep she didn't dare face it? She clenched her fists, tears welling in her eyes. She thought she had already lost everything once. But now, it felt like the worst was only beginning. Hours later, the jet landed in Dubai. The desert air was warm, the night sky painted with stars. Omar's convoy of black cars was waiting, engines rumbling like beasts in the dark. As they drove through the city, Emily stared out the window at the glittering towers and endless roads. She felt like she was stepping into another world, one that wasn't hers. Omar finally broke the silence. "You're safe here. No one can touch you without going through me first." Emily's voice was faint. "But what if they already have? What if they know something we don't?" Omar's jaw clenched. "Then we'll find out. And when we do, I'll make them regret it." She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel safe in his promise, but deep down, she knew the shadow of her past wasn't done with her yet. Suspense ending for Part 9. That night, after settling into Omar's mansion, Emily tucked Jacob into bed. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "I'll protect you. No matter what." But when she returned to her own room, her blood turned cold. On the bed lay a single envelope, placed neatly on the pillow. With shaking hands, she opened it. Inside was a photograph, Jacob, as a newborn, in a hospital crib. And written on the back were 5 words that made her collapse to the floor. "He is not Omar's to save." Emily couldn't breathe. Her hands shook as she stared at the photograph. Jacob, tiny and fragile, swaddled in a hospital blanket. The memory hit her like a wave, those endless hours of labor, the exhaustion, the overwhelming love the first time she held him. She had buried so much of that night deep in her heart, never wanting to relive it. But the words scrawled across the back of the photo were like a knife. He is not Omar's to save. Her chest tightened as her mind spun with questions. Who took this picture? Only hospital staff should have had access. And why now? Why was someone digging up the past she had tried so desperately to leave behind? Emily. Omar's voice came from the doorway. She nearly jumped out of her skin, shoving the photo under a pillow. He stood there in his robe, his eyes searching her face. You're pale. What's wrong? She forced a trembling smile. Just tired. That's all. Omar's eyes lingered on her longer than usual. He didn't believe her. But instead of pressing, he stepped into the room, his voice low. You don't have to carry everything alone, Emily. Whatever this shadow is from your past, I'll face it with you. Her throat closed. She wanted to fall into his arms and confess everything. But the photograph burned against her leg, hidden yet heavy. She couldn't risk losing him. Not now. When Omar finally left, she collapsed onto the bed, tears spilling silently. She whispered into the darkness. What if they're right? What if everything I've told him, everything I've believed about Jacob, isn't the truth? The next morning in Dubai, Emily awoke to the sound of Jacob's laughter echoing through the marble halls. She found him racing toy cars across the floor of a sunlit room, Omar watching quietly from the balcony. For a brief moment, the sight warmed her heart. Jacob's joy was pure, untainted. And Omar, despite his silence, watched him not with indifference, but with something softer, almost protective. Good morning, Emily whispered, stepping beside him. Omar nodded. He seems happy here. Yes, she said softly, though her heart thudded with unease. His voice lowered, serious. But happiness can be fragile. That's why I need you to tell me everything, Emily. Who that man was. What he meant by leverage. Why your ex appeared now of all times. Her lips parted, but no words came. She could only shake her head weakly. I can't. Omar's jaw tightened. He turned away. Then you leave me no choice. I'll find out myself. Fear stabbed through her chest. She grabbed his arm. Please, Omar, don't dig into my past. He pulled back, his eyes sharp. Then give me no reason to. Later that day, Omar disappeared into meetings, leaving Emily restless in the vast mansion. She walked the halls, trying to calm her mind, but every corner seemed to whisper secrets. Every guard's glance made her wonder if they knew. She ended up in Omar's study, a room lined with shelves of books and files. On his desk lay an open folder. Against her better judgment, she looked closer. Her heart froze. It was a background investigation report. On her. Emily skimmed the pages, her job history, her debts, even records from the hospital where Jacob was born. Omar had already started digging. Tears blurred her vision. She gripped the desk, whispering, "Please don't find out. Not like this." That night, while Jacob slept peacefully, Emily stood by her window, staring out at the glittering Dubai skyline. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message. Did he show you the file? He's close. Very close. But I'll save him the trouble. Jacob isn't Mark's. He isn't yours. And soon, Omar will know exactly who he belongs to. Emily's breath caught. She dropped the phone, her hands covering her mouth. Not Mark's. Not hers. She shook her head violently. No. No, that's impossible. Her mind reeled back to the night Jacob was born. The chaos, the exhaustion, the fog of medication. She had trusted the doctors, trusted that everything was as it should be. But what if something happened she never knew about? A hospital mistake. A child switched. Or something worse. Her knees buckled. Oh God, What if Jacob isn't even mine? Emily's whole body went cold as Omar stepped further into the room, the folder clutched in his hand like a weapon. His face was calm, but his calmness was worse than rage. It was the stillness before a storm. Jacob slept soundly in the next room, his gentle breathing the only sound that reminded Emily of what was truly at stake. Omar placed the folder on the bed between them. "I warned you once, Emily," he said, his voice low and steady. "I don't tolerate lies. But now I wonder if I even know who you are." Her lips trembled. "Please, it's not what you think." He leaned closer, his eyes sharp. "Then tell me what it is. Because according to this," he tapped the folder, "there are inconsistencies in Jacob's records. Hospital files that don't match up. Documents that look altered. And if I can find this in a day, imagine what someone who truly wants to destroy us can uncover." Emily's knees felt weak. She sat on the edge of the bed, covering her face with her hands. "I didn't alter anything. I swear." Omar's tone hardened. "Then who did?" She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't know. I never wanted this. I never even questioned. He's my son, Omar. My whole life is built around him." Omar's expression flickered for a moment, as if he wanted to believe her, but the doubt in his eyes remained. "Emily, listen to me carefully. If Jacob is not yours, if someone else has a claim on him, then we are all in more danger than you realize." Her heart stopped. His words echoed the message she had received just hours ago. "Jacob isn't yours." "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "Don't say that. Don't even think it. He's mine, Omar. He has to be." Omar watched her closely, then straightened, his voice cool. "I will find the truth, whether you're ready for it or not." The following day, the mansion was tense. Omar vanished into meetings with lawyers and security heads, his voice carrying through the marble halls like distant thunder. Emily stayed close to Jacob, afraid to let him out of her sight. She tried to distract him with games, stories, anything, but her mind was miles away. Every time she looked at his smile, she wondered if it was truly hers, if her blood ran in his veins, or if fate had played a cruel trick on her. Jacob tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, why are you sad?" Her throat closed. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "I'm not sad, baby. I just love you too much." That evening, Emily sat on the balcony, staring at the desert horizon. Her phone buzzed again. She almost didn't look, but curiosity and fear gnawed at her. This time, the message was different. "Meet me tomorrow night. Alone. Or Omar will learn the truth before you do." Her hands shook. Whoever the shadow was, they weren't just threatening anymore, they were controlling her. She whispered to herself, "If I don't go, he'll tell Omar. But if I do go..." The choice felt impossible. Later that night, Omar entered the balcony quietly. He stood beside her, looking out at the stars, his expression unreadable. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Omar broke the silence. "When I first met you," he said softly, "I thought you were fragile. Someone who needed saving. But now I see, you're hiding something deeper than fear. Something that could destroy us both." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to scream the truth she didn't even fully know. She wanted to beg him to believe in her, in them. But the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she whispered, "I never meant to hurt you." Omar turned to her, his gaze piercing. "Then prove it. Tell me everything. Tonight." Her chest tightened. If she confessed about the messages, about the threats, about the photo of Jacob as a newborn, Omar would demand answers she didn't have. And if she told him about the meeting tomorrow night, he would never let her go. So she stayed silent. Omar searched her face for a long moment, then shook his head. "You think you're protecting Jacob. But secrets don't protect, Emily. They kill." With that, he walked away, leaving her trembling in the starlight. Emily couldn't move. The DNA test lay on the floor like a venomous snake, its red-circled words searing her eyes. Not a maternal match. Her mind rejected it, screamed it had to be a forgery. But the weight in her chest told her it wasn't. The world around her spun until she grabbed the nightstand to steady herself. She turned toward Jacob, asleep under the blanket, his tiny chest rising and falling in peace. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "No, no, you're mine. You'll always be mine." She tucked the paper deep under the mattress, as though hiding it could make it disappear. But her heart knew better. Truth had a way of clawing its way back. The next morning, Emily avoided Omar's eyes at breakfast. He was busy on the phone, issuing orders in Arabic, his voice sharp and controlled. Jacob chattered about how big the house was, about wanting to swim in the pool, oblivious to the heavy silence pressing on his mother. Omar ended the call and finally looked at her. "I've arranged for more security. No one gets near you or Jacob without my approval. Until I know who we're dealing with, you stay inside these walls." Emily nodded, her stomach twisting. She wanted to scream that someone already had gotten too close, that envelopes were appearing in her son's room as if invisible hands placed them there. But fear sealed her lips. If Omar saw that test before she understood it herself, everything would collapse. All day she felt eyes on her. Guards at every corner, servants moving in and out, Omar's men whispering in low tones. The mansion felt less like a sanctuary and more like a cage. When night came, Emily knew what she had to do. She remembered the message, "Meet me tomorrow night. Alone. Or Omar will learn the truth before you do." Tonight was the night. She kissed Jacob's forehead as he drifted to sleep, her heart aching with guilt. She whispered, "I'll come back. I promise." Slipping into a plain shawl, she crept through the halls. The guards at the main gate wouldn't let her pass, so she slipped out through a servant's exit she had noticed earlier. Her pulse raced as she stepped into the warm desert night, the weight of betrayal pressing on her shoulders. The meeting point was an abandoned courtyard on the edge of the city. Fountains stood dry, their marble cracked, and the silence was suffocating. Emily's footsteps echoed as she moved cautiously, clutching her shawl tighter. A voice broke the stillness. "You came." She spun around. The man in the dark suit stepped from the shadows, the same figure from the train station. His smile was thin, chilling. Her voice shook. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" He studied her, hands clasped behind his back. "Want? I already have what I want. Leverage. What I need is for Omar to understand that even his billions can't protect him from losing what matters most." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "You're lying. Jacob is mine. He has to be." The man pulled out a folder and tossed it at her feet. Papers spilled across the cracked stone, more hospital records, photographs, files she had never seen. "The boy you raised is not your blood. A switch happened that night in the hospital. Call it an accident. Call it fate. But Jacob Parker is not your son." Her heart stopped. She dropped to her knees, frantically scanning the papers, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The dates matched. The names matched. But one line kept screaming at her. Baby A, deceased. Baby B, transferred. Her vision blurred. No. No, it can't be true. The man crouched to her level, his voice calm, almost pitying. "I could tell Omar everything tonight. But I want him desperate. And desperation makes men like him vulnerable. That's where you come in, Emily. You'll keep him blind. You'll keep him chasing shadows. And when I'm ready, I'll take everything from him." Her body shook. "Why me? Why Jacob?" He smirked. "Because Omar thinks you're his weakness. But the truth? You're his weapon. And your so-called son is the key." Emily's tears fell onto the papers, blurring the ink. She whispered, broken, "What do you want me to do?" The man stood, his shadow stretching long under the moonlight. "Simple. Stay quiet. Pretend you know nothing. And when the time comes, I'll tell you what to do. If you fail..." His gaze turned ice cold. Jacob disappears forever. Her chest clenched. She wanted to scream, to fight, but fear chained her. She nodded weakly, knowing she had no choice. The desert wind whipped softly through the gates, carrying with it the tension in the air. Emily stood frozen, clutching the folder against her chest, her breath shallow. Omar's eyes locked on her, unreadable, his stance firm and commanding. He didn't need to raise his voice. His silence was enough to make her tremble. "Where have you been, Emily?" His words were measured, calm on the surface, but underneath was an edge sharp enough to cut. Emily's throat closed. She searched for an excuse, any excuse, but her mind was blank. I just needed air," she stammered. "I went for a walk." Omar stepped closer, his gaze narrowing. "A walk? In the middle of the night? Past my guards? Through the back servants' exit?" Her pulse hammered. He knew. Somehow, he already knew she was lying. She swallowed hard, clutching the folder tighter behind her back. "I didn't want to bother anyone. I couldn't sleep." Omar leaned in, so close she could feel his breath. "Emily, I don't know what game you're playing, but let me warn you. Every secret you keep brings danger closer to Jacob. And I will not forgive that." At Jacob's name, her knees nearly gave out. She whispered, "I would never let anyone hurt him." Omar's jaw clenched, his eyes searching hers for the truth. After a long silence, he turned sharply, gesturing toward the house. "Inside. Now." Back in the mansion, the halls felt suffocating. Omar dismissed the guards and led Emily to his private study, a room lined with shelves of leather-bound books and heavy curtains drawn tight. The door shut with a decisive thud. "Sit," he ordered. Emily obeyed, her fingers trembling as she placed the folder on her lap, hiding it under her shawl. Omar paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. "Do you think I don't notice? The late-night whispers, the way you flinch when I mention the past, the fear in your eyes when I get too close to the truth. Someone is manipulating you, Emily. I can feel it." Her lips parted, desperate to confess, but the man's words echoed in her head. "If you fail, Jacob disappears forever." She couldn't risk it. "I'm not hiding anything," she whispered. Omar stopped pacing and turned sharply. "Don't lie to me. Not you." His voice cracked, just slightly, betraying the wound beneath his anger. "I trusted you. Do you understand what that means for a man like me? And now, I can't sleep without wondering if you're the very blade pointed at my back." Emily's tears spilled freely. "I never asked for any of this, Omar. I never asked for you to save me, or for your wealth, or your protection. All I ever wanted was Jacob safe. That's all I've ever wanted." Omar's eyes softened, but only for a heartbeat. He crouched in front of her, his hand gripping the armrest of her chair. "Then trust me enough to tell me the truth. Whatever it is. I can protect you. But I can't fight an enemy I cannot see." Her chest heaved, the folder burning against her legs. She wanted so badly to hand it to him, to say, "Here. This is what I know. Help me carry it." But fear strangled her voice. Instead, she whispered, "Please, just give me time." Omar's face hardened again, disappointment shadowing his features. He stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. "Time is the one thing we don't have. And when this house burns, Emily, remember, you're the one who lit the match." He stormed out, leaving her trembling in the heavy silence of his study. Later that night, Emily sat alone, staring at the folder. Her hands shook as she opened it again, scanning the horrifying lines that confirmed Jacob wasn't hers. Every word was a dagger. Baby A, deceased. Baby B, transferred. She pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. "No, no, you're mine, Jacob. You'll always be mine." Suddenly, the study door creaked open. Emily froze, stuffing the folder back under her shawl. It was Jacob, rubbing his sleepy eyes, clutching his toy car. "Mommy? Why are you crying?" Her heart broke. She knelt and pulled him into her arms, burying her face in his hair. "I'm not crying, baby. I just missed you." He pulled back and smiled innocently. "I love you, Mommy." Her tears fell harder. "I love you more than anything in this world." As she held him, her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at the screen and her blood turned to ice. Another message. "You did well tonight. Keep playing your part. Soon, he'll lose everything. And when that happens, you'll understand the price of silence." Emily's grip on Jacob tightened, her body shaking with dread. She whispered to herself, "How much longer can I keep this lie before everything shatters?" Emily couldn't sleep that night. Every creak in the hallway, every whisper of wind against the windows made her heart pound. She tossed and turned, reaching for the folder she had hidden beneath her shawl, but it wasn't there. Her stomach sank. It was gone. She sat up in bed, trembling. Had Omar found it? Had one of the guards taken it? Or worse, had the man in the shadows somehow broken into the study again? Her mind spun with possibilities, but the most terrifying thought was Omar. If he had read the contents, if he knew the truth, then everything between them would collapse. He would see her not as the woman he wanted to protect, but as a liar who had been keeping his son's identity from him. When dawn came, Emily forced herself to go about the morning routine. She dressed Jacob, fed him breakfast, and tried to smile, though her hands shook with every movement. Omar wasn't at the table. His absence weighed heavy on her. "Where's Omar?" Jacob asked, munching on his cereal. Emily kissed the top of his head. "He's busy, sweetheart. He'll be back soon." But deep down, she feared he might not come back at all. Not the same way, not with the same heart. Later that day, Omar returned. His face was calm, almost too calm, and that terrified Emily more than any anger could. He greeted Jacob with a soft smile, lifting the boy into his arms, but his eyes flicked briefly toward Emily, cold, unreadable, guarded. She tried to speak, to ask him where he had been, but her throat closed. The words died before leaving her lips. When Jacob ran off to play, Omar finally turned to her. "We need to talk." The weight of his voice made her knees weak. She followed him into his private study, the very place where she had last seen the folder. The desk was empty. The curtains drawn. Omar closed the door behind them, and the silence wrapped around her like a noose. He didn't sit. Instead, he stood before her, hands in his pockets, his gaze locked onto her face. "Emily, do you love Jacob?" The question cut deep, but she answered instantly, her voice firm despite her tears. "With everything I am." Omar nodded slowly, studying her. "And you would do anything to keep him safe?" "Yes," she whispered. "Anything." A long silence stretched between them. Then Omar reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out the folder. Her heart dropped. He placed it gently on the table between them, his fingers lingering on the cover. "I found this in my study last night. Care to explain why you've been hiding it from me?" Emily's legs trembled. She wanted to grab the folder, to rip it apart, to make the words inside vanish. But Omar's piercing gaze held her frozen. She whispered, "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how." Omar leaned closer, his voice like steel. "Tell me now. Tell me everything." Her lips parted, but no words came. She wanted to say the documents were lies, that someone was forging them to break them apart. She wanted to scream that Jacob was hers, that she had carried him, loved him, nursed him through sickness, and watched him grow. But the red-circled words haunted her, not a maternal match. Finally, tears streaming down her face, she choked out, "I don't know anymore, Omar. I don't know what's real and what isn't. But no matter what those papers say, Jacob is my son. He's mine." Omar's jaw tightened. He opened the folder and slid one of the papers across to her. "Do you understand what this means? If this is true, then Jacob was switched at birth. Which means someone else's child is out there. And someone knows. They're playing you, Emily. They're playing both of us. Her breath caught. The realization slammed into her chest like a hammer. The man in the shadows hadn't just been tormenting her for amusement, he had been dangling the truth like a weapon. Emily sobbed, clutching her chest. What if I lose him, Omar? What if they take him away from me? For the first time in days, Omar's expression softened. He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Listen to me. Jacob may not be your blood. He may not even be ours. But he is ours to protect. No one will take him from you. From us. Her heart surged with fragile hope, but before she could answer, Omar's phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at the screen, his eyes narrowing. Without a word, he answered the call, listening intently. His face grew darker by the second. When he hung up, he turned to Emily, his tone grim. They're here. Whoever's been following you. They've made their move. Emily's stomach dropped. What do you mean, they're here? Omar's voice was cold as steel. They've taken one of my men. And they left a message. He handed her his phone. On the screen was a photo, one of Omar's guards tied to a chair, bruised, blood streaking his face. And written on the wall behind him in red paint were the words, "Give us the boy." Emily could barely breathe as Omar's phone slipped from her trembling hands onto the carpet. The photo burned in her mind, the guard beaten, the words painted in red behind him. "Give us the boy." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the chair. Oh my God. They're coming for Jacob. Omar paced the room like a lion in a cage, his chest rising and falling heavily. His voice was sharp, filled with restrained rage. I should have seen this coming. They've been circling us, testing the walls, waiting for the right moment. Now they've shown their hand. Emily looked up at him, her tears blurring everything. What if they take him, Omar? What if I wake up tomorrow, and he's gone? Omar stopped pacing. He leaned over her, placing both hands on the armrests of her chair, forcing her to meet his eyes. I will burn this world to ash before I let anyone touch him. Do you hear me? Her lips trembled, but she nodded. His words should have comforted her, but fear still gnawed at her chest. Because she knew the enemy wasn't just outside, it was already inside, in the form of the truth that could destroy her. Within hours, the mansion transformed. Extra guards flooded in, armed men positioned at every corner. Cameras were installed, gates reinforced, and patrol cars circled the perimeter. The estate became a fortress. Jacob, innocent to the storm building around him, played with his toy cars in the living room. He looked up at Emily, his bright smile melting her heart. Mommy, why are there so many people here? Emily forced a smile, kneeling to hug him tightly. They're here to keep us safe, sweetheart. Like superheroes. Jacob giggled. Do they have capes? Her eyes stung. Something like that. But safety was an illusion. That night, Emily woke to the sound of muffled voices outside her door. She crept to the balcony and saw Omar in the courtyard, speaking urgently to a group of his men. His face was carved with fury, his gestures sharp. She leaned closer, straining to hear. One guard asked, "Do you believe they'll come for him tonight?" Omar's reply was ice cold. "I believe they're already watching." Emily shivered. Suddenly, Omar turned his head, his eyes locking with hers on the balcony. She gasped and stepped back, her heart racing. He didn't speak, didn't scold her. He only looked at her with an intensity that made her chest ache. Then he returned to his men. Later, when the house was quiet again, Omar entered her room without knocking. He stood in the doorway, his broad shoulders casting shadows across the floor. "You're not sleeping," he said softly. Emily shook her head, wrapping her arms around herself. "How can I? Every sound feels like someone breaking in." He approached slowly, his voice lower now, more gentle. "I told you, I'll protect him. I'll protect you. But you have to stop keeping things from me, Emily. Secrets are cracks in the walls, and right now, we can't afford cracks." Her throat closed. She wanted to confess about the man in the shadows, the threats, the truth about the DNA. But his eyes burned with so much determination, so much control, she was terrified that telling him would shatter that strength. Instead, she whispered, "I'm scared, Omar. I've never been this scared in my life." To her surprise, his expression softened. He sat beside her on the bed, lowering his voice. "Do you think I'm not scared too? But fear is a luxury we can't show. Not to them. Not to Jacob." For a brief moment, his hand brushed hers. Warmth spread through her, fragile and fleeting. Their eyes met, and she saw something there, something beyond fury and control. A crack in his armor. But before she could speak, a loud bang echoed through the mansion. Both of them froze. Omar leapt to his feet, barking orders into his phone. "Check the west gate. Now." Emily clutched the blanket, her heart pounding. Within minutes, 2 guards entered with grim faces. "They tried to breach the wall," one reported. "We stopped them before they got close. But they left this." He handed Omar a small black envelope. Omar tore it open, his jaw tightening as he read the note inside. Without a word, he passed it to Emily. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. The message was written in the same red ink as before. "This fortress means nothing. You can guard the gates, but the boy already belongs to us." Emily's blood ran cold. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to stifle the sob clawing its way up her throat. Omar's voice thundered through the room. "Search every inch of this estate. I want eyes in the walls, in the ceilings, everywhere. If they've touched this house, I'll find them." The guards rushed out, leaving Emily and Omar alone. Emily whispered, barely audible, "What if they're right? What if Jacob was never ours to keep?" Omar turned to her, his face fierce, his voice like fire. "He is ours because we choose him. Because we love him. And no one, do you understand me, Emily? No one takes what is mine." Her chest heaved with silent sobs, torn between fear and the dangerous comfort of his words. Emily's entire body went numb as she stared at the photo. Jacob, asleep in his bed, his small hands curled around his toy car, exactly how he was now. The picture had been taken from just a few feet away. Her chest tightened until she could barely breathe. Someone had been in the room. Someone had stood over her child while he slept. She clutched the photo to her chest, her hands shaking so violently she almost tore it. Her first instinct was to scream for Omar, but a chilling thought froze her. What if the intruder was still inside? What if yelling would draw them back toward Jacob? She crept to the door and peered into the hallway. The mansion was quiet, guards stationed at intervals, their guns resting against their chests. Everything looked secure, but the photo in her hand proved it was all an illusion. Emily tiptoed back into Jacob's room. She knelt beside him, brushing a curl from his forehead, whispering, "I won't let them take you. I don't care what it costs." Her tears fell silently, staining his blanket. But she knew she couldn't carry this alone anymore. The secrets, the threats, the truth about the DNA, all of it was a weapon in the wrong hands. And by hiding it, she had played directly into their game. For the first time, Emily made a decision. She would tell Omar everything. She waited until Jacob was safely asleep again before slipping the photo into her pocket and making her way to Omar's study. The door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. She pushed it open and found him standing by the window, a glass of dark liquid in his hand. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his face tight with exhaustion. He didn't turn when she entered. "You should be in bed," he said, his voice low, almost weary. Emily stepped inside, her heart racing. "Omar, I need to tell you something. Everything." At that, he turned, his eyes narrowing. He placed the glass down with deliberate care and faced her fully. "Finally," he said softly. "I was wondering how long you planned to keep playing this game." Her knees weakened. She pulled the photo from her pocket and laid it on his desk. This was under Jacob's pillow tonight. Someone was in his room. Omar's jaw clenched as he picked it up. His hands were steady, but his eyes burned with fury. "Inside," he muttered. "They were inside my house." He crushed the photo in his fist and threw it against the wall. Emily flinched but forced herself to continue. "There's more. They've been contacting me. Sending me messages. Meeting me in secret. They know things about Jacob, about me, about the hospital records. I didn't know how to tell you. I was so scared, Omar. They said if I told you, they'd take him away." Omar's gaze snapped to hers, sharp as a blade. "Meeting them. You met them." Her tears spilled. "Yes. Once. They said Jacob isn't my son, that he was switched at birth. They showed me papers, files. And then, they gave me a DNA test. It said I wasn't a match." Her voice cracked. "I don't know what's real anymore." For a moment, Omar said nothing. His silence was suffocating, heavier than any shouting could be. He stepped closer, his face unreadable. "Why didn't you come to me the moment this began?" "Because they threatened Jacob," she sobbed. "They made me believe silence was the only way to protect him. And I thought if you knew, you'd look at me differently. Like I wasn't enough. Like Jacob wasn't mine." Omar's eyes softened, just barely, but his voice stayed firm. "Emily, listen to me. Blood doesn't make a child yours. Love does. Jacob is your son because you chose him, because you fought for him. Don't ever question that." Her chest tightened with relief, but fear still lingered. "What do we do now? They're inside, Omar. They won't stop until they get him." Omar's gaze hardened, his voice dropping into a deadly calm. "Then we take the fight to them. They think they can control you with fear. They think they can break me by threatening what I love. They're wrong." He moved to the desk, pulling out a drawer. Inside was a small, sleek gun. He checked it, then slid it into his belt. "From now on, Jacob never leaves our sight. You stay with him at all times. And as for the people behind this," his eyes darkened, "I'll find them. And when I do, I'll make sure they regret ever speaking his name." Emily's breath caught. The steel in his voice terrified her, but it also made her feel safer than she had in weeks. Still, doubt gnawed at her. The enemy wasn't just faceless strangers, it was the truth itself. And sooner or later, Omar would demand answers she didn't have. She whispered, "What if the truth destroys us, Omar?" He stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek gently for the first time. "Then we fight the truth, Emily. Together." Her heart ached with a fragile hope. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe they could withstand whatever storm was coming. Suspense ending for Part 16. But just as relief began to settle in, Omar's phone buzzed on the desk. He picked it up, his eyes narrowing as he read the message. He handed it to Emily without a word. Her blood turned to ice as she read. "You're too late. The boy has already been marked." Emily's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. "Marked?" she whispered, her voice breaking. At that moment, Jacob's cry echoed from upstairs. Both of them ran. Emily's heart nearly exploded in her chest as Jacob's cry pierced through the mansion. She sprinted up the stairs, her bare feet pounding the polished floors, Omar just a step behind her. The hallways stretched endlessly, every shadow suddenly alive with menace. She burst into Jacob's room and found him sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his cheeks. His tiny hands clutched his arm, and his blanket was thrown aside. "Mommy," he sobbed. "It hurts." Emily fell to her knees beside him, wrapping her arms around his trembling body. "Baby, what happened? Tell me where it hurts." Jacob held up his little arm. Emily gasped when she saw it. A thin, fresh red mark, almost like a small burn, etched into his skin. Not a scratch from play. Not an accident. A deliberate mark. Her throat tightened. "Oh my God." Omar leaned in, his jaw clenched, examining the injury. His face darkened with fury. "This wasn't an accident. Someone touched him. Emily's stomach flipped. But how? The guards. Omar snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. The guards were distracted. The breach at the west wall, it wasn't about breaking in. It was about pulling eyes away from this room. Emily held Jacob tighter, rocking him gently as he sobbed against her chest. Shoo, baby, you're safe now. Mommy's here. Her tears fell into his hair, her mind screaming. They were in this room again. They touched him. They could have taken him. Jacob whimpered. It burns, Mommy. Emily kissed his forehead. I know, sweetheart. I know. She looked up at Omar, panic in her eyes. What does it mean? Why mark him? Omar's voice was low, dangerous. It means they've claimed him. They're telling us he belongs to them. That no matter what walls I build, they can still reach inside. Emily shivered violently. The thought that strangers had stood over her son while he slept, branding him like property, made her want to scream until her throat tore. Omar barked orders into his phone, summoning the head of security. Guards filled the hall within minutes, their eyes wide with alarm when they saw Jacob's arm. Omar held the boy gently, his massive hand resting protectively over Jacob's back. From this moment forward, not a single second passes without someone at his side. If one of you fails, I'll hold you responsible with your life. The guards nodded, fear etched across their faces. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, trembling, her hand stroking Jacob's hair as he drifted back into uneasy sleep. The red mark on his arm stood out stark against his pale skin, like a cruel reminder that safety was slipping further from their grasp. Omar knelt beside her, his voice quieter now, though still heavy with steel. Emily, I need to know exactly what they told you. Every word, every threat, every piece of information. She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. They said he wasn't mine, that he was switched at birth. That Jacob is the key to destroying you. Omar's eyes narrowed. Switched at birth. He glanced at the sleeping boy, his expression unreadable. If that's true, then Jacob's real bloodline connects to someone powerful. Someone who wants leverage over me. Emily shook her head violently. I don't care whose blood he has. He's my son, Omar. Mine. For the first time, Omar's voice softened. He placed a steady hand on hers. And mine too. But we can't protect him if we don't know who's after him, or why. Her lips trembled. I don't want to lose him. You won't, Omar promised, though his tone carried the weight of a vow forged in fire. Not while I breathe. Hours passed, but neither of them slept. Omar sat in his study, making endless calls, his voice low and controlled as he summoned allies, threatened enemies, and ordered his men to dig into hospital records from years ago. Emily stayed with Jacob, brushing his hair back, watching his small chest rise and fall, terrified that if she blinked, he would vanish. When dawn finally broke, Omar entered the room again, his eyes bloodshot but sharp. He leaned against the doorway, watching Emily cradle Jacob. They've left us no choice, he said finally. We can't stay here. This house is compromised. Emily looked up, panic flickering in her eyes. Where will we go? Omar's jaw tightened. Somewhere they won't expect. Somewhere only I know. But first, he walked closer, his gaze intense. We find out who Jacob really is. Because until we know the truth, we're blind. Emily's breath caught. What if the truth means I lose him? Omar crouched beside her, his hand brushing Jacob's marked arm gently. Then we fight the truth. We bend it. We burn it. Whatever it takes. His words sent a shiver through her, not just of fear, but of something else. Hope, fragile and dangerous. Emily stared at the phone in her trembling hands, her chest rising and falling in sharp, panicked breaths. They know. They know already. The message glared back at her, cruel and taunting, like a shadow whispering in her ear. Omar's voice broke the silence, calm yet burning with rage beneath the surface. They've tested his blood already, he said, pacing the room. That means they had access to him before tonight. At the hospital. At school. Somewhere in between. This didn't start yesterday, Emily. This has been in motion for years. Emily held Jacob tighter, her tears dampening his hair. But how? How could anyone? How could they touch him without me knowing? Omar stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing as though piecing together a puzzle. Because they were never strangers. Whoever they are, they've been close. Close enough to walk past you without raising suspicion. The thought twisted Emily's stomach. She thought of the teachers, the doctors, even some of her neighbors who used to watch Jacob play outside. Could one of them have been part of this nightmare? Omar grabbed his coat, his voice sharp. I'm going to the hospital where Jacob was born. There has to be a trail, records, something. They think they can blindside me. They're wrong. Emily's heart jumped. No. Don't leave us alone, not now. Please, Omar, what if they come back tonight? He softened slightly, walking back to her. He cupped her cheek, forcing her eyes to meet his. I'll leave 20 men at this door if I have to. No one will touch him while I'm gone. His hand lingered, strong and steady. But Emily, without the truth, I can't protect him from what's coming. Her lips trembled, but she finally nodded. Then promise me you'll come back. I swear, he said simply, and there was a weight to his words that made her believe him. That night, Omar disappeared into the city, leaving a wall of guards around Emily and Jacob. The mansion, usually silent, buzzed with radio chatter and heavy footsteps. Emily tried to sleep beside Jacob, but every creak in the hallway made her jolt upright. She kept replaying the message in her mind, we know what he is. Do you? Around midnight, she drifted into an uneasy half-sleep, clutching Jacob's hand. But a faint noise woke her, the soft scrape of metal against glass. Her heart leapt. She turned toward the balcony doors and saw it, a faint red laser dot moving slowly across the curtains. Her breath hitched. A sniper. She didn't scream. She couldn't risk waking Jacob into panic. Instead, she slid off the bed, crawled across the floor, and yanked the curtains shut. Her heart was beating so hard she thought it would burst. Then she scrambled for the phone on the nightstand and dialed Omar's number with shaking fingers. He answered instantly. Emily. Omar, they're here. There's a laser on the balcony. Jacob. Stay down, he barked. She could hear car horns in the background. He was still on the road. Don't move. Guards should be on that balcony already. I'll handle it. Her chest burned as she held Jacob tightly against her, shielding his body with hers. Minutes felt like hours until the sound of gunfire shattered the night. Shouts, boots running, then silence. Emily's whole body trembled as she rocked Jacob, whispering, It's okay, baby. Mommy's got you. Moments later, the door burst open. 2 guards stepped inside, their faces grim. Ma'am, it's clear now. The shooter's gone. But one hesitated, exchanging a look with the other. Emily stood, clutching Jacob. But what? The guard finally spoke. They left something behind. On the balcony. For you. Her blood went cold. When Omar finally stormed into the mansion an hour later, his coat still damp from the night rain, Emily was sitting on the bed with the object clutched in her hand, a small, black envelope. He froze when he saw it. Where did that come from? They left it after the sniper, Emily whispered, her face pale. She handed it to him, her hands shaking. Omar opened it carefully. Inside was a single piece of paper with a hospital logo across the top. Emily gasped when she saw the name written in bold letters. Jacob Parker. Her knees weakened. Oh my God. Omar's eyes scanned the paper, his face hardening with every line. Finally, he looked up at her, his expression unreadable. Emily, this isn't a threat. This is a record. Her voice cracked. A record of what? Omar's silence stretched, heavier than any words. He handed the paper back to her. Her eyes scanned it, and her heart stopped. The document wasn't a birth certificate. It was a transfer report. It listed Jacob's name, but beside it were two other names, crossed out. At the bottom, a signature Emily didn't recognize, someone who had authorized the switch. She dropped the paper, her vision blurring with tears. This means, it's true. He really isn't mine. Her chest collapsed, the weight crushing her. Jacob stirred in his sleep beside her, his small face so innocent, so trusting. The boy she had raised, loved, protected, now tangled in a truth that threatened to take him away. Omar bent down, gripping her shoulders firmly. Listen to me. Paper or no paper, that child is yours. Do you hear me? No one, no signature, no bloodline will change that. Not while I'm alive. Emily searched his eyes, desperate, broken. But Omar, if they already know who he is, how do we stop them? Omar's gaze hardened. By finding out who signed this. Because whoever authorized that transfer is the person who wants Jacob now. Suspense ending for Part 18. Before Emily could respond, Omar's phone rang again. He answered, his voice sharp. Seconds later, his expression changed, something between fury and disbelief. He ended the call, his hand shaking for the first time. Emily's stomach dropped. What is it? Omar looked at her, his face pale. The name on that document, the one who signed the transfer? Emily, it's someone in my own family. Emily felt her entire body go cold at Omar's words. Someone in his family? The thought twisted her stomach in knots. She had always known that wealth brought enemies, but she never imagined the betrayal would come from the inside of his own bloodline. Omar stood there, staring at the crumpled transfer report on the floor, his fists clenched so tightly the veins in his arms bulged. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and dangerous, like a storm about to break. I should have known. The enemy wasn't just outside these walls. They were sitting at my table. Emily's voice trembled as she clutched Jacob closer. Omar, who would do this to a child? Omar's jaw tightened. My brother. The word hit Emily like a punch. She remembered him vaguely, a charming man with quick smiles, who had visited once months ago. He'd been warm, almost too warm, making little comments about Jacob's eyes, his hair, his quiet nature. Emily's stomach churned at the memory. Omar turned abruptly, pacing the room like a caged lion. My younger brother, Zayed. He's always resented me. Everything, our father's empire, the inheritance, the respect, I inherited it all. He thinks the family crown should have been his. If he was behind the transfer, then Jacob isn't just some boy switched at birth. He's leverage. He's a weapon against me. Emily shook her head violently, tears spilling. No, he's not a weapon. He's a little boy. He's my son. He's ours. Omar knelt in front of her, his dark eyes softening as he touched her hands. To us, yes. But to Zayed, Jacob is a chess piece in a war he's been planning for years. Emily's heart raced as she whispered, What are we going to do? Omar's jaw hardened again. We're going to end this war. But first, we need answers only Zayed can give. By the next evening, Omar arranged a meeting in one of his private estates outside the city. The building was old, stone walls reinforced with guards at every corner. Emily sat in a dimly lit room, Jacob sleeping against her, while Omar waited across from the door. His face was unreadable, but his silence carried a weight that made the air feel heavy. Finally, the door opened, and Zayed walked in. He was tall like Omar, with the same sharp features, but his smile was cold, slick, the kind that never reached the eyes. He spread his arms mockingly. Brother! What a surprise! You never invite me anywhere anymore. Omar didn't rise. His voice was steady, controlled, but each word dripped with venom. You signed the transfer. You put my family in danger. Why? Zayed chuckled, circling the room slowly, his eyes flicking toward Emily and Jacob before returning to Omar. Because you've always had everything. The company. The money. The power. I wanted something you couldn't control. And then, fate delivered him to me. Emily's stomach twisted as she pulled Jacob closer. He's just a child, she whispered, her voice breaking. Zayed tilted his head, smirking at her. Ah, Emily Parker. The desperate single mother who stumbled into a world far too big for her. You should thank me. Without me, Omar would never have even noticed you. Omar shot to his feet, his rage barely restrained. You touch her name with your tongue again, and I'll silence you myself. Zayed only laughed, unbothered. Always so protective, brother. But you can't protect him forever. He nodded toward Jacob. Do you even know who he really is? Emily's breath caught. What do you mean? Zayed leaned closer, his voice low and taunting. The boy's blood doesn't just tie him to a hospital mistake. No, he's the heir to another family entirely. A bloodline more dangerous than ours. He is the key to an empire you can't even imagine. Emily's world spun. Heir? Bloodline? Jacob wasn't just caught in a family feud, he was at the center of something much bigger. Omar's voice shook with fury. You used a child for your power games? Zayed's smile widened. Not just a child. The child. Do you understand now why they want him? Why they marked him? Because whoever controls Jacob controls everything. Emily clutched Jacob tighter, her tears falling onto his hair. She whispered fiercely, he's not a weapon. He's my son. He's Jacob. Nothing else matters. Zayed's eyes gleamed with something dark. You can lie to yourself, but the truth doesn't care what you want. Sooner or later, they'll take him. And when they do, you'll understand what it means to lose everything. Omar's hand went to his belt, where his gun rested, his voice trembling with restrained violence. If you so much as breathe near him again, Zayed, I'll end this feud tonight. But Zayed only leaned back, smirking. Do it, brother. Shoot me. But if you do, you'll never find out who else is involved. You'll never know the real truth. The room fell into suffocating silence. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears as Omar stood frozen, torn between rage and strategy. The walls of the estate shook as the gunfire outside grew louder, closer. Emily clutched Jacob so tightly against her chest that he whimpered in his sleep. Her heart pounded like a drum in her ears, her eyes darting between Omar, who stood tall and fierce, and Zayed, who wore his smirk like a crown, as though chaos itself was his triumph. The guards shouted orders in Arabic outside the door. Hold the line. Don't let them through. The clash of bullets against stone echoed through the halls, each sound a reminder that the enemy wasn't miles away anymore. They were here. Omar drew his gun and turned to Emily. His voice was sharp, urgent. Take Jacob. Go to the underground passage. Now. Emily shook her head frantically. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Omar snapped, his eyes blazing. They're not here for me, Emily. They're here for him. If they get Jacob, everything is lost. I'll hold them off. No, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. If you fight them alone, they'll kill you. And then what? Jacob will lose the only father he's ever known. For a moment, Omar's hard gaze softened as he looked at her, really looked at her, as though she had stripped him bare. Then he glanced at Zayed, whose smirk widened. Touching, Zayed drawled. But it's already too late. Do you hear that? They're not breaking in. They were let in. By my men. By my orders. Omar's voice dropped to a deadly calm. Then this ends with you, Zayed. The doors suddenly crashed open, guards stumbling in, bloodied and outnumbered. Behind them, men in black stormed the room, guns raised, their faces hidden. Emily screamed and ducked, shielding Jacob with her body as bullets ricocheted off the stone walls. Omar fired back, his movements precise, ruthless. Every shot echoed like thunder. He grabbed Emily's arm, dragging her toward the back door of the room. Go. The tunnel. Zayed laughed even as bullets whizzed past his head. You think you can escape them? Don't you get it, brother? They'll never stop. Because Jacob isn't yours. He belongs to them. Emily's legs buckled at the words, but Omar pulled her harder. They darted into a narrow hallway, guards forming a shield around them. The roar of gunfire grew behind them, shouts echoing as men chased them deeper into the estate. Jacob stirred, crying against her chest. Mommy, I'm scared. Emily kissed his head, sobbing. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. I won't let anyone hurt you. Omar pressed a hidden switch in the wall, and a section of stone groaned open, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into darkness. Go, he ordered. Emily hesitated, fear tearing her apart. What about you? I'll follow, he said firmly, his eyes burning into hers. I promise. Protect him, Emily. Her throat tightened, but she nodded, rushing down into the shadows. The door closed behind her just as more bullets rang out, sealing her away in the cold passage with Jacob in her arms. The tunnel stretched endlessly, damp and silent except for her ragged breathing. Emily stumbled forward, clutching Jacob, whispering reassurances she barely believed. Her tears blurred her vision as her mind screamed, what if Omar doesn't make it? What if this is the last time I see him? Finally, she emerged into a small safe house hidden beneath the estate grounds. 2 guards were already there, waiting. They rushed to secure the entrance, their radios crackling with frantic voices. Emily sank to the floor, rocking Jacob, trying to steady her shaking hands. But her heart ached for Omar. Every gunshot she'd heard upstairs could have been his last. Suddenly, the safe house door burst open, and Omar stumbled inside. His shirt was torn, blood staining his sleeve, but he was alive. Emily cried out and ran to him, wrapping her arms around his chest. He winced but pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. You're safe, he whispered hoarsely. That's all that matters. She sobbed into him, clinging to him like he was her anchor in a storm. Hours later, as dawn broke over the horizon, the gunfire finally ceased. Omar's men had pushed the attackers back, but the cost was heavy. The estate was in ruins, and Zayed had vanished in the chaos. Emily sat beside Jacob, who was finally asleep again, his little arm bandaged where the mark still burned faintly. She looked at Omar, who leaned against the wall, his eyes heavy with exhaustion but burning with determination. This won't stop, will it? She whispered. No, Omar admitted. Not until we uncover the full truth. Not until we know exactly what Jacob's bloodline means, and why they'll risk everything to claim him. Emily's voice broke as she touched Jacob's cheek. I don't care about bloodlines. He's my son. That's all I know. Omar's gaze softened. He reached over, taking her hand in his. Then we fight for that truth. For him. No matter what it costs. Her tears shimmered, but for the first time, there was fire in her eyes. Together. Omar nodded once. Together. Suspenseful final beat. A guard stepped forward, holding a sealed envelope he'd found among the bodies of the attackers. Sir, we found this. It was addressed to you. Omar opened it slowly. Inside was a single sentence written in bold letters. The boy is only the beginning. Emily's breath caught as she looked at Omar. His face darkened, his jaw tightening as he whispered, Then this war has only just begun. And as the sun rose, painting the sky in fire, Emily realized their lives would never be the same again.